for example 2, I probably should have just included this with the previous video, but oh well. So this one you can make up whatever example you want. So it asks us to make up a population that you want to know more about and then whom you'll survey. So maybe your population is all students at WAMA. So maybe you want to get a survey of all students at WAMA about what they want the theme for our next dance to be, or I don't know, really anything that you want. Sample size. You could select the students in Mr. Brasser's Algebra 2 class. So maybe asking students from my classes will give you enough information that you can make an assessment about what the entire student body would want. You can make up whatever example you want there. But remember, the population has to be a large group, the sample size has to be a specific subgroup of that, or say a smaller group of that. It doesn't have to be specific like Mr. Brasser's class. It could just be you go into the lunchroom or during A lunch or B lunch or whatever and select 30 people at random. That's a good sample as well. So many different examples you can come up with there. All right, next up we got to talk about bias. So a biased sample is one in which not everyone is fairly represented. So say you wanted to get the student body's opinion about whatever you want, and then you only ask 25 freshmen. Well, 25 freshmen, they might not have the same ideas about really anything that seniors or juniors or sophomores do. So that would not be a fair representation. So when you're underrepresented, that means one or more parts of the population are left out when choosing your sample. Sorry, the word that got a little bit cut off. So in that example where I was saying you're only surveying the freshmen, well, that means sophomores would be underrepresented. Their opinions wouldn't be asked at all, or juniors or seniors. Overrepresented was the opposite side. There's a greater emphasis placed on one or more parts of the population when choosing the sample. So again, if you're asking about like what you want the next dance's theme to be about, and you only ask the freshmen, well, the freshmen are being overrepresented. You're not getting the opinions of anybody else other than the freshmen. So on this next page, we're going to talk about whether we think some things are, or some populations are being overrepresented or underrepresented. These can be kind of flexible. Sometimes you'll argue one way or the other, but you got to make sure you provide a strong argument. You can't just say it's not, if it's biased because I think it is. You need to provide an example of why it is. So again, determine in your groups whether the following sampling methods could result in a biased sample. I'd like you to talk with the people around you before you continue with this video. So maybe pause, especially if you're watching with somebody else, pause, take a few minutes, go through these 4 examples, and then you can come back and see what I said. Now again, you can make a good argument one way or the other, but maybe your argument's better, maybe my argument's better. So take a few seconds, discuss with people around you, pause the video, and come back. Okay, so you clearly paused it and you're not just letting this video continue going, but I'm going to keep going. So for group 1, it says a survey of cities or of a city's residents is conducted by asking 20 randomly selected people at a grocery store whether the city should impose a beverage tax. I'm going to argue that's biased for a couple different reasons. First of all, not everybody in that city is going to shop at that one specific grocery store. Think about all the grocery stores that we have in this area. And if you're selecting it just from one group, it might be in a neighborhood that is way drastically different than the neighborhood that you live in. So your area might not be represented very well. Also, if you're talking about a beverage tax and you're having people go into a grocery store, they might be kind of thinking about like, well, I'm about to buy beverages. I don't want to pay an extra tax. So maybe their current thought process will be a little biased as well. You could make an argument that it would be a good sample because, you know, you get a wide variety of people at a grocery store, but it might not be the broadest. Group 2, a survey of students at school is conducted by asking 30 randomly selected students in an all-school assembly if they walk, drive, or bus to school. I would say that's unbiased because everybody at the school has a chance of being selected. So freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors. And so you're going to get a wide variety. Because if you were to ask just the freshmen, you're probably not going to get a lot of freshmen that say they drive. Or if you ask just the seniors, well, you're going to have a higher population of them or higher percentage of them that drive and not as many people that maybe walk or bus than, say, the freshman class. Group 3, an online news site asks readers to take a brief survey about whether they subscribe to a daily newspaper. I'm going to say that's a little biased. So first of all, it's not getting any opinions of people that aren't subscribed to that or that aren't reading that news site. Also, if people are reading a news site, that means they're probably going out of their way to read the news, which means there's probably a higher percentage that they're going to be reading the newspaper as well. So that's probably a little biased. The last one, I think this one's probably the most clear. A car dealer wants to know what percentage of the population in the area is planning on buying a car in the next year. The dealer surveys the next 15 people who come to the car lot. So these are 15 people on a car lot being asked if they are planning on buying a car in the next year. Many people that go to car lots, I'd say the vast majority of people that are going to car lots are going to buy a car. Or they're looking to buy a car. Or they're with someone that's looking to buy a car. So I'd say this one's pretty biased. I think that one's probably the most cut and dry. For a couple of the other ones, you could make an argument one way or the other. I'd say group 2 and group 4, those are probably the most obvious. Maybe groups 1 and 3, you can make an argument one way or the other, but I'd say groups 2 and 4, those are pretty strong in those.